First of all, I hope everybody is watching my stream right now. You should see Spy. But start off by saying thanks for showing up. I really appreciate it. Obviously, this is a side passion project of mine. I am not a financial advisor, and I'm only speaking on my experiences and the knowledge that I've accumulated over the last year. So going into it, I really do want to start with showing the indicators that I use when I map out my swing trades or longer term investments. And so the first one, and almost my most useful one in my opinion, is the volume by price. And you'll see this on most of my charts here. Basically what this shows is just volume at certain price levels. And so they create these sort of shelves. You can kind of see that I've already identified one small shelf right here in the current consolidation of SPY. You can see bigger shelves in times of choppiness and no like overall trend. And then also with the longer uptrends, you can see that volume has increased over the time. Secondly, in terms of long term, I look at the 200 MA, but I use MA clouds instead of just strictly the moving averages. Most people are very familiar with 50, 100, 200 MA. I like to use the 150 and the 200, specifically with SPY, because it seems like historically it really does respect it. You can see back here in October of 2019, we dipped right into the 150 and just bounced right off the 200 and then continued. Obviously before the sell-off in March, you can see that people really did try to accumulate this dip thinking it would respect the 200 MA again. Obviously it did not. With the pandemic, fear was way stronger than greed, and we see this really steep elevator down. Luckily we recovered quickly, the quickest reversal in history from what I read. We broke through the 150 200 MA and then bounced off it a couple times before continuing our bull run. And then if you guys remember, back in September, October, we had a really choppy market. We didn't really know what was going to happen. We were dealing with the beginning of the election, and then we finally broke out and continued. And just recently in December, we actually broke a multi-year resistance zone. And if I switch over to the weekly chart here, you can actually see this isn't just some BS line I drew, but instead it's actually a zone that it's tested on multiple occasions dating back to 2015. So this break over resistance of 5-year resistance is pretty significant. I think that's a pretty key indicator of the fact that we're definitely still in a bull market. You know, we saw on Friday that the beginning of a pullback. You know, we've all been talking about it for the last couple days. We've got to have some sort of dip so that we can continue to rip. What I'm going to be looking at specifically in the days to come is going to be this support line, because obviously once we break through resistance, we know that resistance becomes support. So the first level that I'm going to watch for to see if we break or bounce off of is going to be this 372.33 zone. You know, we're very close to approaching it already. If we do break through it, so be it, that's fine. We also have this, you know, inferior support zone that I've kind of drawn in here earlier today, just to suggest that it's still kind of trading in a zone. So if we do break below this multi-year resistance, no big deal. We'll test this support here, and then we'll also test the volume shelf here at 368.59. Something to note, and if we look back to September, October, we did get some pretty big dips almost back to the 150 MA that we know SPY respects. So is it possible that we see that again? Definitely. I'm not saying that we're not going to get there, but to be honest, I don't really see it going that far. I think we'll find out pretty quickly here this next week. It is a short week, so we'll see what happens. And then if we go over to NASDAQ, we're kind of in a similar boat, right? We do have this shorter term resistance, about 6 months, that we've been respecting. If we go over to the weekly chart here, and I click this auto trend button, I know because I clicked this earlier, we kind of have this same idea, 6-year resistance zone that we've respected the entire way up. And we've approached it multiple times in the last year and rejected each single time. I'm expecting the Dow eventually, not very soon, but eventually, that we will press through this resistance, kind of like SPY did. It only kind of makes sense that it would run with SPY, even though it's a different industry and sector. But, you know, we'll see. But my point being, we're extremely extended right now, and I think we all know that. So I definitely see a pullback coming a little bit. For the NASDAQ, we could go as far as this 131 shelf to 128, which would once again respect that 150 MA. And yeah, we'll see about that. Also, real quick, I do use other moving averages in cloud form as well. And so the first one I use is the 1020, and same idea. The top line of the green zone is the 10 MA. and the bottom is the 20. I will only use these for more intraday trading, swing trading, maybe 5-10 day charts, 30-minute charts, 5-minute charts, things like that. Also, I have the red cloud, which is a 2050 MA. I don't use this one as much as I use my 5065, and I'll explain that why in a minute, but for the most part, once again, this is for more short swings, intraday trading. And then let's go take a look at SE. And the reason I want to show you guys SE is because this is actually one of my longest holdings. When I first started investing, it was actually back in like 2018. I bought a couple stocks and held them just because that's all I knew how to do. And early on, I learned that for your long holds, it's kind of beneficial to, especially for growth-based companies where you're expecting, large growth over year, it's kind of nice to have a certain moving average that you can say, okay, the trend is breaking if we cross over this. So with a lot of the stocks that I've held long-term, the 65 MA seems to be a really good sort of support, at least on the daily chart. Let's see, another one of my long holds that kind of respects this as well, but not nearly as much, is going to be Fiverr. Very, very similar. Obviously, this only started back in April. I acquired Fiverr, I think, in July and August of this year, and it's been super, super awesome. I did have this one fake out, but I didn't end up taking profits because we did get a clean bounce nearly the next day. I'm still going to be holding them for at least another year, I think. A lot of people think that tech is in a bubble. I think the value is there for companies like Fiverr and Etsy because they are very consumer oriented. It's not like big business is pushing it, it's the consumer itself. And that's interesting to me. But we're not going to go into the fundamentals, we're just looking at technicals. And yeah, so let's see what else I got. So starting off, oh, you know what? I also want to talk about the McClellan oscillator real quick. And this is something that's new to me, but I also find it extremely interesting. And it's something that I think we should all kind of start to monitor to determine whether the market is oversold or overbought. So you can see here, this is the daily chart for NYMO, and that's the McClellan oscillator. And basically, this is just like I said, it kind of determines overbought and oversold. So if we look at the dates here, October 28th, if we look at SPY, October 28th, I'm pretty sure it's going to be this second dip here. Yep, pretty much. So it's actually a pretty good judge of when you can see bottoms. I'm not going to say it's perfect because obviously, especially if we go to the weekly version of this, this is nothing compared to the dip we had in March and also the dip we had in December 2019. It's definitely possible to go further, but I think the best way to look at this is kind of like, okay, if we're sitting up at 40 and 60 on the McClellan oscillator, might not be a good idea to go long right now, or grab calls, or grab common stock, whatever. Might want to wait until we're at least below 40, below 20. Right now, even with the pullback that we had on Friday, we're still sitting pretty good at this 0 and 9 zone. So let's see. Yeah. So there's definitely room to move down, but it's not indicating that we're close to the bottom or the top. So that makes me think that we might get a slight pullback. But if we look at the last time that the McClellan oscillator approached the 50 MA and rejected it multiple times, we did see a couple pullbacks, right? This was, I think, October, September. So the fact that we are resisting this 50 MA makes me think that we could drop definitely more than from where we are right now. And then I do want to show you the actual definition because I think it's, I'm giving you the smooth brain version of it, but the McClellan oscillator is a market breadth indicator that is based on the difference between the number of advancing and declining issues on a stock exchange, such as the NYSE or NASDAQ. Indicator is compared to stock market indexes related to that exchange. The indicator is used to show strong shifts in sentiment, and the index is called breadth thrusts. And yeah, if you guys want to learn more about this, I linked a video to Duckman's interview with Richard Moglin, and I have a lot of respect for both of these guys. I followed them for a long time, and they definitely know what they're doing, and they are very heavily TA guys. But also Duckman is a 50-50 fundamental trader as well, so definitely recommend them. I'll post their Twitters in the chat later so that you guys can follow them as well. And that is pretty much all I'm going to go over for the broader markets. I think it's very, very important that we all make sure that we know where we're at on NASDAQ and SPY before we just start taking long positions, because I know we all think stocks only go up, but obviously that's not the case. Okay, and then the next thing we're going to jump into is chart patterns. All of these obviously are in the resources. I know a lot of you guys are already familiar with these, but I've been trading breakouts and supports on these chart patterns for the past 9 months, and they have become my bread and butter, honestly. So if you can memorize these patterns and their bias, you can truly, get an edge on the market with it. And obviously, we all know that the stock market is not absolute. Nothing is for sure, but we can plan accordingly, have good risk management, and still be able to capitalize on these opportunities. Okay, so bullish pennant, pretty obvious, straightforward. You've got the flagpole, you've got the base of the flag, and then the pennant itself. This also kind of looks like a falling wedge to me. They are all kind of one and the same. I think I have a better, yeah, so it also looks like a falling wedge here. We've got the bullish rectangles or bull flag. The bull flag can also be angled downward. It doesn't have to be, a perfect rectangle. And then obviously the bearish reversals is just when it's trending downward. You would watch the triangle, and if it's got this kind of leg up, you're obviously going to assume this is bearish. Also, same thing for the rectangle. For bilateral chart patterns, I typically call them non-bias, but bilateral I guess is okay too. Ascending triangle, you've got that flat resistance. You can get that break up or that break down. You measure the break by, once again, measuring the length of the base of the flag. And I'll show you some examples of these later. We've got the descending triangle, pretty much the exact opposite, but can be both bullish and bearish. And then lastly, the symmetrical triangle. And although this one is bilateral or non-bias, I do find that, especially on stocks that have good fundamentals, or like year-over-year revenue growth or sales growth, things like that, these do typically tend to be bullish. And I've got a couple of examples of that too, but we'll get into that in a bit. Just some more charts that are pretty much the same thing, just some different shapes. And these are all saved in resources, and I honestly have had so much success with these. I guarantee you, if you memorize these, you'll start to identify them in your charts and you'll be able to capitalize on them. Ascending triangle, this says that it's bullish. This is actually bilateral. Okay, and then there's also broadening patterns, and I've actually started adapting these somewhat recently, but they actually do. I love when they always test support multiple times. So if you see a bounce off resistance and support 3 to 4 times, it's usually a good entry here. And I haven't had one really backfire. The only time I really did was when I tried to buy the breakout, but I realized a lot of the time on these broadening wedges, they'll false break, fall back to this resistance line of support, consolidate for a bit, and then break out. So the only time I've really gotten burned on these is when I'm impatient. But these are pretty good. Same thing here. You would think this is bearish, but with the broadening bottom and the higher highs, it's actually bullish. There is a form of this that is bearish, and it's when this support zone is actually flat. And I think I have that picture here. Yeah. So, they're very similar, but if you can identify the differences and remember the bias, again, you can capitalize on it. Okay, cup and handle. Everyone is super familiar with the cup and handle. I think one of the most identifiable ones right now for me is Apple. Right? It's not a clean cup, but it is what it is. We see the rounded bottom over a multi-month consolidation and upward trend. We see the handle here. The only thing that's bothering me is that on Friday with that sell-off, we did break below this green volume shelf that I was looking at for support, which, with market, sentiment as it is, not very surprising. My next level would be to see if we can stay above this 65 MA and also stay above this volume shelf right here. So that's a cup and handle, an example of that. We've also got the head and shoulders pattern, and this is a bearish pattern. Pretty identifiable, shoulder, head, shoulder, breakdown. There's also the bullish version of that, which is the inverse. Instead of the neckline being the support, it's the resistance. So you can see shoulder, head, shoulder. And when you see these breakouts, what you want to see is this accumulation volume. I talk about accumulation volume all the time, and it doesn't have to be on that day. It can be in the weeks coming up to it. Usually when you see these large bars of volume, it's that institutions or market makers are getting in on it too. So that's always a good sign. Obviously, we want to follow the market makers. They know way more than we do. We're just trying to follow the volume. Okay, and I think that's all for the patterns that I want to go over. I think we're going to go into some tickers so I can show you exactly how these patterns have played out recently. Let's start with Tesla. So Tesla is obviously an anomaly. We know that it's basically been on the biggest bull run of its life. The few patterns that I've been able to identify was this just downward channel back in 2020, right before or right after the pandemic hit. Then we had the reversal and the upward trend up into this bullish pennant. This one's got the flat bottom and the angled resistance. So we know this doesn't necessarily have to go up or down, or excuse me, it doesn't necessarily have to go up. It can go up or down. But in this case, we did break upwards. And then right here, if you guys remember, mid-August or late August is exactly when that stock split happened. And all of the market expected Tesla to shoot up because cheaper prices, and it did exactly the opposite. So we saw this stock fall all the way from $511 to $330, and this is actually where I bought Tesla for my Roth. So, and I've still got it in full, and I felt that when we bounced to that 65 MA, that I was confident that we would continue to ride that up as we have the last couple months. And obviously that's paid off for me. But this is a bullish pennant, obviously. If we want to take a good guesstimate as to where the stock is going to end up, always measure the base of the flag itself, and then I'll put it right here at the end, and you can see that breakout actually was pretty close to where this estimate is, and we got some consolidation before another break. That's a pretty clean chart. Once again, this is got the strength of Wall Street bets, so it's almost too good to be true. Most charts aren't this clean. Let's look at FUV. FUV is a symmetrical triangle, so non-bias. I really liked this chart because we were up above the 65 MA considerably. We had the power earnings gap, and I know some of you may not be familiar with that. And if you aren't, I really think you should go read the first post in Ryan's earnings recap. I talk about the power earnings gap strategy that is not developed by me. It's by a trader named Stewie, and basically it implies that companies that gap up on great earnings have the potential for a good run in the next 3 to 6 months. It's not always immediate, but sometimes it is. Either way, you should look out for these stocks. You can see on the right here, I have a Stewie's PEG list he made public. I've also added some that I created too, and this watch list is actually linked in the chat for you guys to have as well, if you want to monitor these stocks in the months to come, because this is pretty much where I pick a lot of my blue chip plays from. Okay, so back to the symmetrical triangle. We have the incredibly large gap up here. We see the spread of the flag base is about 52% here. We saw with the breakout and the tested support line that we could have a potential squeeze here as price action was coiling. It did. We got a breakout. We got that drop back to the resistance as support like we usually do on symmetrical triangles, and then a continuation almost up to our price target, but still pretty damn good. Then we see the Friday sell-off, which obviously is why we need to pay attention to market sentiment. And then also you can see that we had this beautiful volume shelf here because we had all that volume come in from the gap up day, and then also the consolidation of a couple weeks. So pretty much a flawless symmetrical triangle breakout there. Okay, let's go to ACB. Incredibly similar chart, just a little bit more whippy. Something to note, the marijuana sector has been incredibly hot right now. I'm pretty sure most of us have played it once or twice. And this is a very interesting time in our history because, at least in the United States, marijuana is becoming legal in states and decriminalized across the country. And so these businesses that came out, in 2018, like if we go to the weekly chart here. So when we got that big boom in 2018, they were like, oh my God, you could buy into weed companies. This is going to be huge. Well, investors kind of jumped the gun on that because even today, there's so much gray area in the cannabis industry. I know that from experience. But I think we're starting to see the real bottom of the marijuana sector. So this will be really interesting to see with all the decriminalization and legalization happening in 2021. ACB is definitely not my favorite weed pick. And I will actually go over my favorite weed pick at the end of this, but still, we got a very flawless symmetrical triangle break over this. Once again, we got the breakout, the sell-off back to support, or excuse me, back to resistance as support, and then the bounce back to highs. So I still think this has room to go. The flag base says so, so we'll see going into next week. I think even with a sell-off, these pod stocks are gonna stay high. Okay, now let's go into TGT Target. I like this one because the price action is incredibly tight. Oh, did my headset just turn off? It did. So I like this one because the price action is incredibly tight. You can see that we kind of have this, we had the power earnings gap up back in August, resulted in a sell-off for about a week and a half. and then we had a great bull run. And then we repeat the process. Downward trend, tested the 65 MA, bounced cleanly, and then another breakout. Same thing. We came back down, tested the 50 MA, consolidated a bit, and then broke out. Now it looks like we're forming another flag, and I assume we'll probably end up doing the same thing. It's super important to realize that each stock has a unique personality, and if you learn them, you can play them over and over again. Okay, moving on to Net. This is another PEG list, another bull flag candidate. So same thing, gap up October 12th on earnings. I only know this because I did my research on it, but yeah, we had the flag, perfect breakout, consolidation. This almost looks like an ascending triangle. If we drew some lines here. So you can see we had an ascending triangle there, we had a tested resistance and a somewhat tested support, even though we did drop below it a couple times. We know it's not perfect, but we did break out and then continue. And then recently we fell back to that 50 MA, bounced cleanly off it, showing relative strength at these prices, and we're continuing to ascend. Like I said, power earnings gappers, these are really companies that people expect a lot out of. They probably have good volume coming into them, and I think it's really worth it to check out these PEGs for sure. Okay, let's see. Falling wedge example. MP Materials, this is kind of a new one, also a PEG list runner. We see we kind of IPO'd at $16 here, and what's kind of cool to see is, once again, it's kind of got its own pattern, right? We kind of gap up, wedge down, gap up, wedge down, and now we gapped up again, and we got a more dramatic wedge down, of course, because the gap up was larger. Okay, so what I really liked about this, and this is actually a trade that I alerted, was that we saw this volume shelf right here get tested multiple times over the last week and a half prior to my entry around, I think, the 7th. So we saw here on the 29th, we dipped into the volume shelf and bounced cleanly off of it. We saw the next day a dip into the shelf and bounce off of it. Nothing there. This one was worrisome, right, where we dipped actually below the shelf, but the daily close was still in it, which shows relative strength, in my opinion. Next few days, same thing, we bounced around this zone, justifying my thought that the support was definitely there. And I lucked out, and we did get like a 15% move on the stock the next day once it broke this resistance. Normally I can swing these for a couple days, but when I get a big move like 15% in one day, I usually just cash out because there's the potential of a pullback kind of like this. And it played out because you can see it is starting to wedge again. But I do expect this to reach higher highs, and this is something to watch going into 2021. Okay, let's see. Broadening patterns. Unity. This one isn't formed completely yet, but you can definitely see it's taking shape. 65 MA is just forming, and I actually love that it's showing it's right over the 50. This means that if we do come down to this support again, I might actually get an entry here, because this is a company fundamentally that I'm interested in. But we do like this. We got kind of a rough flag pull here into a broadening pattern. This is definitely bullish. What I also like to see is this pretty large volume shelf supporting the current price. So let's do this. So you can see we have a lot of volume by price between this 146.24 to 157.14. If we can get the support buy off of the 50 MA, even better. But once again, fundamentally, I would do some research if this interests you, because this pattern is pretty clean. I expect us to get the third test of resistance, and then we'll see if we can bounce off the shelf and then continue upward. This is on my watch list going into next week for sure. Another broadening pattern I have is Snapchat. And Snapchat is another PEG winner. If you had to guess where it was, well, duh, it's this right here. This was one of the power earnings gappers that just continued immediately after that first massive gap up. This is a huge sign of institutional buying, like I said. And the more institutions inside of a stock, the better. I mean, obviously there's ones like Apple and, the trillion-dollar companies, billion-dollar companies. It's not that much big of a deal because those aren't growth-based. I think it's super important to focus on growth stocks and stocks that are increasing their revenues, increasing their sales, instead of chasing like the Microsofts and the Apples and stuff like that, who have already been pretty established for a long time. Those stocks will give you good returns, but I think it's the up and coming new businesses that'll really get you some movements. And you can see we've got this broadening shape coming here too. It's a little bit more narrow than the one on Unity, but I still think this counts definitely. I like that once again we're bouncing off the 50 MA here just above it. We could test below, especially with the market sentiment the way it is, but this might be a good swing on Snapchat going up to resistance for sure going into the next week. Okay, let me see. What do I got on Billy? Okay, so this is a bullish rectangle. This is actually the only one I could really find as of recently. But this is also a power earnings gapper. You can see the massive volume spike. We got the long candle up towards the new consolidation zone, and then just a beautiful continuation. And honestly, this thing has gone, what, 100 and, yeah, at least 100% since the power earnings gap up, which is incredible from just November. So although people think they can afford blue chips, the truth of the matter is it's just you have to wait a little bit longer, especially if you're finding the right companies. Also, since I trade a lot of options now, I found that just being able to play like a 4 or 5% move on a blue chip that respects chart patterns is way easier than trying to secure the 30 to 40% on a penny stock that might tank on an offering. And obviously I still trade penny stocks. I'm not saying not to. I'm just saying that although people think blue chips are unattainable or too expensive, the returns can still happen. You just got to kind of look for them and make it work. And then speaking of penny stocks still respect the patterns too. And then IZEA is a fantastic example of that. Beautiful bullish pennant, straight clean breakout. And honestly, we're still testing new highs. Something that I do want to identify about IZEA, if we go to the weekly chart, this thing is still a piece of shit. I understand if you believe in the company, but you have a long way to go before you break that $10 base, and I think there are better investments. I guarantee you we'll see a correction just like we saw back in September of 2017 after the pump. So look out. Like, I understand if you've made a lot of money or like you've turned 100% on the stock, that doesn't necessarily mean the stock is a great stock. Make sure that you're setting your PTs, make sure you're trading your plan, especially if you're looking for short-term opportunities, not long-term. Okay. And then let's go to Richard Moglin. Where is your... Huh. Did I not save that? There we go. Okay. So these are stocks that Richard Moglin, another technical analyst, is really looking at. He likes the fundamentals behind them. I don't really want to go into the fundamentals. I think that's a very important process that I think we should do a stock talk on. But for now, we're just going to stick to the TA side of things. So for Corsair, obviously we saw a pretty good IPO run. Normally these things need to break their base, but Corsair created their base in this range right here next to this volume shelf. A lot of volume by price between the $34 zone and the $40 zone. If you could pick up shares on this bottom base, more power to you. I think this is a good company long term. They're not going to be profitable for the next 2 years, but their sales and revenue projections are still extremely bullish. You can see I've added this secondary resistance zone once we did break out of this descending, or I guess a falling wedge kind of pattern here. And we did bounce off of the resistance, so let's see if we can continue off of that or if we'll come back down to support. We'll just have to wait on this. I think this is a good company to watch going forward as well. I agree with Richard. Farfetch, not incredibly familiar with the company. I do need to do my research. It definitely looks like this year it picked up some steam. This is also a power earnings gap winner as well. You can see that very obviously with a huge buy volume. And this thing has just been running. This one's incredibly interesting to me now because we've once again approached that 50 MA, the thing that I look for in my long holds. So if we can get a bounce off this 50 MA or even the 65 and then go back up and break our resistance, I think we can catch another good bull run on this going into the end of 2021. IIPR, once again, power earnings gapper. You can see we respected the consolidation right after the gap up, then just continued onward. This one has a lot of respect for the 5065 mah too, not nearly as much as like Fiverr or SE, but still pretty damn good. And then look, we broke out here as well. We're getting some consolidation and holding this price, which is pretty good news. We did have this dip on January 14th, but it looks like we're gonna consolidate a bit here before continuing the run. Omen. I'm not really sure what this company does, to be honest. It's healthcare. We've got Clove being hyped up right now. Teladoc is also one of the biggest health companies being looked at in 2021 for sure. But I do like that we had this rectangular breakout, and I also do like that we're forming a flag right here. A lot of the time when we have these stocks that kind of dip below the support and resistance with these long wicks, I'll set up a secondary support line, kind of giving myself some leeway, because otherwise you're getting, I mean, I don't use stops, but mentally you could get stopped out here, right? Because the price action is obviously still pretty volatile. And that's why I kind of like to enter on this 50-65 mah on my longs. But you know, for a flag breakout, I might play something that has a consistent breakout record like this. FUV, this is another one that I think I did a trade idea for. Oh, we already went over this one. I'm not going to do this again. LOB. This is Live Oak Banch. No idea what this stock is. I do love that it's respecting the 50 and 65 mah, and we've tested that 2-3 times in the last couple weeks. That's pretty good. Nothing much else to say here. Palantir. This is like a Wall Street Bets meme at this point, but at the same time, the numbers and the contracts that they have are no joke. I think once they break this IPO base here, we're going to see some massive continuation, because we've had 2-month consolidation now, almost 2.5 months. It's a pretty big deal. So I'm still watching this one closely. I love that the price action is tightening. I would be lying if I said I have not moved my support and resistance multiple times watching this stock, and that happens. It's not always going to respect the support and resistance, so you kind of have to work with it. But you know, as long as you keep updating and keep watching these stocks over the days, you might be lucky enough to catch the break. MGNI, we talked about this one actually the other day, I think in options chat. Very similar setup to MP that we looked at, where we had the great breakout and then a pretty steep decline before showing support actually on this previous trend line. I debated getting into this one. I don't really know why, but this one did work out. We're seeing that Friday brought it down a little bit, but I think this will still have some good continuation, given the market stays pretty solid. And VCR, looks like we've got another broadening pattern, kind of a loose pennant here as well that broke upward into it. Love that it's holding that support multiple times. We got a huge red bar here on Friday. Maybe we can get lucky enough to get in at this support 155.33, then make the breakout or even just the test of resistance again. Broadening is once again one of my favorite patterns right now, and they have been on quite a good bull run. I'd have to look at the fundamentals here. I'm not really sure what to expect, but I love how they're respecting the 50-65 mah as well. Snapchat, already talked about. We don't even need to go into it again. All right, now this is another one, TRSSF. Once again, respecting the 50-65. We've got a large consolidation here at the volume shelf. And then after we had about, what is that, from November 27th to January 11th, about a month and a half there. After a month and a half of consolidation, got a breakout upward. I love, love, love that the volume on this, the accumulation is steadily increasing. It would be really cool to see this continue. I gotta look into the fundamentals of this too. I've never even heard of this company. Okay, apps, Digital Turbine, same difference. This 50-65 mah, we got a little bit, under. It's never gonna be perfect, but still, if you could stick it out for 2-3 days with iron stomach, you would have been able to get great returns in just a matter of months. I don't typically like when the downward trend of the flag here is widening like that. A lot of the times you can get some serious gap downs. LHX kind of had a similar widening flag, I believe. Actually, it wasn't too bad. But yeah, these are a little tougher to judge when the actual break is. But we were able to see that the price was being supported at around the $51 mark, and then we finally got that break. So we'll see what happens going into next week with this one as well. Etsy is kind of an absolute monster. Doesn't respect the 5065 as much, but we do have this pattern of up, sell off, up, sell off, up, sell off, and then this one as well. We got a very clean falling wedge actually. You can see I put a secondary support at the bottom of the wicks there just in case to make sure I knew we would, we weren't really dropping below the pattern. And we bounced pretty cleanly here right before the 50 mile and all-time highs. I think Etsy is still something that's got a lot of growth potential in the at least 2021. I'm not sure about a couple of years from now. I'm sure there'll be new websites and stuff. And then GRWG, Grow Generation. This is my favorite weed play going into 2021. I think that a lot of these small companies like Sundial, ACB, these companies are great, but I think these guys have the actual fundamentals to back it. They're expecting good revenue year over year and increased sales from the last time I read on them. I don't have a position. I would really like this thing to base somewhere, and it just really hasn't. We've just gotten these repeated flags. The weed sector's been incredibly hot. I hope we get some sort of pullback because it does seem like the weed sector might be reversing as a whole now with the possibility of legalization. But yeah, no, that's pretty much all the tickers that I wanted to look at. So I'm gonna go ahead and change the rules to allow people to speak, and if they have any additions or comments or anything, we can try to answer them, myself and the other analysts mods. So one sec. Okay, everyone should be able to speak. If you want, go for it. Oh, you know what? I have had the wrong chat up the entire time too. Let me see. Voxel analyst? We could do Voxel real quick. Pump NW, okay. Voxel was, I actually drew this recently. So we've kind of got this bottomed out cup forming with resistance on this kind of consolidation zone. You can see that we've got this pretty big volume shelf here supporting the price between 145 and 187. This looks a lot like DGLY, and to be honest, these penny stocks have been running incredibly hot. No bias on the cup. The cup is usually a bullish. Cup is usually bullish bias. Let me see. Hold on. I don't do fibs as much, Jordan. That's something that, other people have done. Looks like the cup one forgot when it was called already. Let's look at DGLY. This is another one that I'm in right now that I'm pretty bullish on. We've got another kind of cup here. Resistance is kind of upward trending though, but I do like that we're coiling and getting tighter in here. All we need is some terrible news in our government, which happens every day for this thing to fly. So I do have a position here in DGLY. WWR. I called this one a couple days ago. I still think this is gonna squeeze at some point. Price action has gone incredibly tight. We've got a good volume shelf here between this 480, 560. This is kind of a pump and dump stock, but if enough people get their eyes on this pattern, I got that Yates pump and it didn't work, but maybe next week, I firmly believe this is a good entry on the support. Alrighty. Do we have any other ticker requests? SRNE? Okay. I actually like SRNE. This reminds me a lot of OSTK. Ooh, look at that. I missed the breakout too. I've been putting this on the watch list for a little bit. Okay, I got your guys' requests. This one is Sorrento Therapeutics. If you guys remember a couple months ago, I can't remember, was it Citron put out a search or a short report on them, and the CEO from Sorrento came back and was like, "You better cover yourself before you hurt your family and losing money." So the CEO here is kind of a savage. I'm not familiar with their product too much, but I do like that we've got this 6-month consolidation since August. We have a previous peak at 21.20, and we're trading more than 50% under that. Lots of upside potential here. I think with the way that small caps are running, this is definitely something to watch going into next week. Also, relative strength on a sell-off Friday is huge. I'm actually quite impressed that this was the candle from Friday. We've got above average accumulation volume too, and we're just above that volume shelf. So nice, I like that. Capone. I really like SRNE. I do. I wish I'd noticed this this daily break right here. I probably would have bought this. But either way, that looks pretty solid. Let's do SRPT. There's a Kathy favorite. This is a really sad cup and handle. Actually, I did want to show this one, so I'm glad you requested this. This is a perfect example of patterns do not always work, right? So if you see that we've got this cup, we've got this handle, and you're like, oh, this is the perfect entry, make sure you still know when you're gonna stop, because this thing drops over 50%. Over 100%. Well, no, it's 50%. But the good news is we've got a lot of volume support by price here. We're kind of consolidating. It's kind of a wavy. We'll go into the 65 minutes so we can get more of a understanding of where we are right now. So we have this massive gap down, and we're kind of beginning to crawl upwards. The important thing to note here is we have this huge volume gap right here, price volume gap, right? So if we touch here, this will move pretty quickly. If we get to here, it'll grind a little bit slower because there's a lot of people holding their average at this price. And same here, same here. But that break above 96.66 will be pretty important. You can see we've kind of rejected that zone, that 96.66, a couple times. But I mean, fear really drove this thing. I'm not really sure what the lawsuit was about, but Kathy bought it, so. Fubo, I like Fubo. Let's do Fubo. Okay, Fubo is another company that I actually put in my retirement account. I love the fundamentals behind them. They've got insane projections and growth. Sports are super important to Americans and everybody across the world, and they've got like the best sports streaming network, or so I've heard. We do have a lot of consolidation here after that big move to $63. So we have a lot of good support by price at the 20, 25 to 30 range. I was able to start accumulating down here in the 30s, and I think my average is sitting about 29. But I guess from what I've been reading, a lot of the time when you're investing in these really early growth-centric companies, you're going to get volatile price action. What's really cool to me is that, and I didn't notice this until I was looking at Fubo the other day, but we tested this 50-65 MA and we did not break below the 65 despite that huge correction downward. I like that personally to me, and that kind of gave me the conviction to add here. So I'm curious to see if we can kind of continue this upward trend. I don't expect it to be a massive gap up like this, though if you do notice the volume by price just above the 40-40 zone, it's incredibly thin, so we could see a fast move up just like we did last time. I like this company a lot, so we'll see what happens. Genus, god damn it, dude, I'm not looking at Genus. Fail. Fail. The Wall Street Bet special, this thing has just been freaking mooning, honestly. I do like that it has this upward trend, consolidation, kind of forming a small shelf, and then a break upward. I would assume it was trying to consolidate again here. But Friday sell-off probably caused a lot of stop selling to come through. If we can bounce off this little mini shelf again, I think we can continue upward. It's a pretty impressive chart. I do want to look at the weekly real quick. Interesting. So in terms of the weekly, we did get a cross over the 50-65 MA, and it was extremely bullish off that cross. That's interesting. Let's look at monthly. Okay. Yeah, I'm not familiar with what they do at all, so can't really give insight onto whether this is a good long hold or anything, but I mean, it's definitely bullish right now, so. Let's see. EEM. This is solid. I don't really like to trade choppy stocks like this. Right, this is a ETF, but it's kind of like techie. It's kind of choppy all the way through. I do like that this respects the 5065 pretty good. Maybe the 200 mAh would be better for this one. The 200 mAh is almost like it's not as reactive. So, if you enter on the 200 mAh and then say we sold off, you would make no profit over like 3-4 months there. So I think the 6550 is a better, more reactive moving average to trade off of in terms of swings or like multi-month swings. This looks bullish though. I mean, obviously we're getting a little bit of a correction. I would like to see it at least bounce off this 5092. I'd be pretty impressed if we fell that hard, honestly. This thing looks pretty bullish still. But if we fall below this 5396, not a lot of volume here, you could easily see the low 53s. I like this though. Let's look at weekly. I'm gonna take off my 200 mAh actually. That thing is bullish as hell. Pretty crazy. Monthly. This is interesting. So something that is incredibly important to notice is that this is all the way from 2008. EEM had a decade-long resistance breakout. I mean, that won't go unnoticed. People will definitely see that. That's pretty crazy. I would love to see this come back and test this, resistance as support and then continue. Could be a good long hold for like a slower mover. Okay, let's see. Good job skipping. What did I skip? Tech. I'll do Lulu after tech. Tech was a Kathy buy, wasn't it? Okay. So I charted this one. This one was a little more difficult. It's definitely like a giant pennant. We've tested this support twice. I've also put in this secondary support zone that you see it kind of has respected. I guess we'll see kind of going into next week if we bounce off this support or if we drop down to this more dramatic one. We do have a lot of false breaks on TAC, and that's something that as a breakout trader I don't really like. And then also we got this false break here. Yeah, I even identified it. False break, which resulted in it falling back into trend. But look at this buy volume on Friday. Holy hell. This makes me suspicious. This is interesting. This sounds like or looks like institutions and market makers to me. So maybe this is something we watch going into the next couple weeks to year. Lulu. Oh, you want Genus? Oh no, I'm not gonna do Genus, especially if Banana asks. Uh-oh, I don't like Lulu right now. It fell out of trend. Not a fan. Would love to see Lulu retake this bottom support. Right now this is kind of a big deal that it fell through this support. Kind of looks like Facebook. And you know what happened to Facebook, so Lulu not looking too good. Potato, I got you. HRL. Ooh, wow, look at that reversal down there. That's big buying volume. So this is, man, I wouldn't, let's do auto trend and see the monster that it creates. That's terrible. So that orange line is not so bad though. If you can cross that orange line, right? That is technically a long-term resistance. Don't know what this company does. Hormel Foods sounds disgusting. I'll be honest with you. But yeah, I mean, this is definitely noticeable buying volume here, above average after a pretty massive sell off the last couple months.
Yeah, I kind of want to say it's like post dividend too right now.
Ah, that would make a lot of
Yeah,
sense too.
yeah, yeah. It's like the dividend was on the 8th.
On January 8th,
Hormel is the chili people,
Yeah.
by the way.
the chili people, nice. Got
Yeah,
it.
the
Yeah, I know what you're
canned
talking
chili.
about. Okay, where was AHCO? Oops. Wow, that's a pretty cool gap up. Almost looks like power earnings, but I'm not familiar. Potato, you know why this gapped up?
No idea. It just popped up on the scanner.
Okay, no big deal. I do like that we've got that shelf accumulation right here. So the big price by volume zone is right here. This 35 to 38 place. We have dipped below and have dipped below. Tested the 50, bounced off of it. It's definitely possible that we do it again because you know the shelf kind of honestly goes all the way down to here. But this is where the majority of shares are traded, so I'll stick it here. I would like to see a daily close candle like this one, but of buying volume. So I would like to see a daily close on top of this shelf right before this one. You know, when I see the daily candle close on top of a longer term shelf, and I'm talking like probably 3 weeks to 2 months of consolidation, usually people will take that daily close on top of the shelf as a sort of springboard, and the buying will usually follow pretty soon after. That's just what I've seen, and I've traded off of.
So one thing I kind of want to add real quick. The thing I like about this is, I mean, there was a pretty bad sell-off on Friday, and if you look at that candle, how bullish it was. It went low, but it immediately got bought up. I mean,
Right.
sure, there's a little bit of a wick at top, but given what we went through on Friday, I think that showed some major resistance from that downtrend. Coming,
I think that's a super important point because, like I said, relative strength during market down days,
oh yeah,
huge deal. That's a sign of a market leader.
you could also kind of draw a wedge. Um, Descending. I mean, it's not the
It's
prettiest
not going
chart.
to be pretty, but yeah, you definitely could.
Yeah, because of that green candle going underneath. I don't know what happened that day. If it wasn't for that, it would be okay. But
Either
yeah.
way, yeah. Either way, I do like the consolidation. I do like there's a lot of volume by price here. I think it's safe if you can get in on the bottom side of this shelf. We might not get that because people are going to notice that relative strength on Friday, I would think. But that's cool. Any green candle on Friday, that last Friday, is incredibly impressive. If you guys saw the that image with all the stocks and what percent down or up they are, it was pretty much a blanket of red. So that's good to see. TSNP. Okay, I'm gonna do the 65-minute here because this is like, you know, obviously a penny stock, but this is incredibly gappy. Okay. I mean, it's very obviously an upward trend right now. We did get these massive peaks. We have dipped below the 5065 MA. This might not be reactive enough, so let's go ahead and see if the other MA clouds are more respected by it. This is kind of what I'm seeing right now. And we know from the charts that the chart patterns we looked at earlier that this is a non-biased or bilateral ascending triangle. The fact that we did get these gap ups makes me think this is bullish. The thing that bothers me is the volume by price on this is very thin. So because it's low float and it's a penny stock, it could fly up and it could fly down just as easily and just as fast, like we saw with these huge dips. So these are worrisome to me. But that's, you know, that's the risk of penny stocks. They're volatile. If you've got some sort of catalyst, Tesoro Enterprises, if you got some sort of catalyst coming up, this could be a good idea because the chart is primed for a break, whether it be up or down. I do like that it's coiling, it's getting tighter. It's always good to see before a breakout. I wish there was a little bit more volume by price in these areas though. It's actually quite surprising, but I guess this has been around for a while. PSTH. Pershing Square Tontine? Interesting. Okay. So immediately I do like that it looks like we have long-ish periods of consolidation before breakouts. So if we kind of look at the volume by price here, we can see that we had about this November 30th to January. We got about a month of consolidation here, getting us a good amount of price by volume, supporting the price at 25, 26, 26.50. And then we got another breakout, and it looks like we're beginning to consolidate again. It looks like the shelf is going to start to form right here. I love that we got this huge, like we just talked about with potato. On a down day, we had a huge reversal, and it ended with a green, almost hammer candle. That's really great to see relative strength on a stock like that. I like that this isn't a penny stock too, and I like that it has, it's done this consolidation thing here, break upwards, we did fall back, break upwards, consolidation, break upwards, and now I'm expecting another month consolidation, and then maybe a break upwards again. But I do think that this will probably be the new accumulation area. But this is an interesting one to watch, I think. GOEV. Okay, we're gonna go to 65-minute for this. This doesn't look half bad immediately, but let me zoom it out a little bit. No more data. I can't really see because my logo here, but we know that this either IPO'd or this is a SPAC or whatever it on December 22nd, so fairly new. I'm just going to assume for the sake of discussion this is an IPO. It usually takes about 6 months for an IPO to break its base. It can be sooner. We saw with Corsair, the thing just immediately started running. Same with DoorDash, but that came toppling down since. But we do like to see that this is curling. We've got kind of a cup here. It looks like that there was a lot of people saw this resistance right here, right? And it looks like that was what sprung the price back up to this. We've got a shelf appearing here with the shares that were bought in the last couple days, as well as the shares bought back in January 12th. Not familiar with Canoe too much on what they do. But to me, I would much rather get in when this thing breaks IPO price. So I'm gonna assume it's like right here where my logo is. So 24.55. I would like to see that break before an entry on this. And then if I can go show Rocket real quick, this is another company that I hold. And this is a perfect example of it still needs to break that IPO base. And so we IPO'd, I think, around $22 for Rocket or something, or was it down here? Not too sure. But you can see that we've been trading in a range pretty much besides this massive gap up in the beginning. We've been trading in a range for over 6 months now. So I'm curious to see what happens in 2021 with this, because I still think this is incredibly undervalued. I flip this a lot because it's pretty consistent. But this is just a good example of an IPO that still needs some time, I think, to marinate. Let's go CCX. I hate that stock. I have a call for it. Let's go check it out. Ironically, it's upward trending, which is hilarious to me because my option just keeps losing value. But that's okay. CCX is 100% speculative. They are said to be merging a SPAC merger with Skillsoft, which is an online education platform. With the pandemic, that sounds like it's kind of like when the pandemic hit and Zoom took off, right? A plus B is C in this case, or 1 plus 2 is 3 in this case. I would like to see this continue trending upwards. I wish we had more information on the company. Ryan has a grudge. Yeah, Banana was smart here. He got common shares. That was probably the way to go. That's okay. I've got a far out call personally on this. I just did it more of a speculative play since SPACs are super hot right now. Yeah, True Science said it's gonna go up, and that dude, his feet fly faster than mine ever have, so I trust him. I mean, pretty ugly chart though, but I mean, we're just waiting for the news on this one. It's nothing too crazy. If you haven't looked, check TLSS. I have not. Let's take a look. I know we played this one back in the summer. Whoa. Okay, yeah, so this is just, I would honestly say that this is just penny stock hype, right? I think with how small caps are running, I don't know what, you know, what they've been doing in terms of company changes, but when I see a chart like this, you know, it's kind of risky. I just, you know, the OTC game is not like as much, it's not what I do as much anymore. But I mean, you can definitely capitalize on this. Something to note is that this accumulation volume is still increasing. We did get a massive sell day. Can't really tell with volume shells with this one because it's got such a long history of just being nothing. But you know, penny stocks are hot. If you can get in before the gap ups, like that's what I'm saying with DGLY. I think DGLY and then WWR. I think these will have their time too. I think all the pennies and the small caps are running. Just like normal sector rotations, like November, we were seeing all the blue chips just freaking running for days. Okay, let me see. 80 AP. Don't know why we had a massive gap down. The reason why I don't like this is we've just got zero volume. I mean, it's a small cap, but the overall volume on this thing is pretty low. We do have a support shelf built here at this $4.80 range to $4. Looks like if we take this gap, I'm sure we can move up pretty quickly, as we do with most gaps. And then the next resistance point would probably be this 757 area. If you got a catalyst, sure, you know, not bad. It's curling for sure. We did get massive gap ups. I'm not sure why, but there's worse charts. PPBT. This is fairly new, it looks like. We'll go 65 minute. That looks like a pretty loose flag to me. I'd probably go like this, because you can see the volume shelf is here. So the most of the shares have been bought and sold in this range. We tested resistance, rejected off of it. I think we could probably test this support one more time, and then if it does bounce, might be worth getting an entry for a run up to resistance or possibly the breakout. What's nice is that this is trading over what it opened on December 22nd. That's good. Usually takes stocks a little bit longer to do that, so that's pretty bullish in my opinion. There must have been some crazy news here in January 13th. BLNK, okay, I could do that. FIII as well. So this one actually looks like I drew on the 65 minute here. So we had a falling wedge, we had the break above it, we tested previous resistance as support, and then gapped up through the volume shelf. It looks like we were trying to find a new support here, but Friday looks like it just destroyed it. So we'll see in the next few days if we retake that consolidation zone or if we'll drop back down through this volume shelf. BLNK is incredibly bullish though, with the EV sector being hot, with all these EV companies going. I mean, you can't deny this bull run is crazy. We've gotten from $10 to $60 in like 2 months, barely. I think even the 50-65 mile is like not a good judge of, you know, support and resistance here. Let's take a look at the red. The red is though, so like this is a good example of where the 20 mile is actually pretty well supported by this. So maybe BLNK entry around $45, you know. Would love to see a confirmation of a bounce here. We do have this shelf right at that 20 mile. You know, we could continue to see upside on this. I love that it bounced off of this shelf and then closed above it. That's a very bullish sign in my opinion. We did have a sell-off day, but it was Friday, you know. We'll see what happens next week on this one, but this is actually pretty cool. I like the way that it's basing. WHR. Okay, it kind of looks. Oh wow, you can see I looked at this one a long time ago. Let's just start over here. I'm gonna take off that 50 ma. Okay, so I like that we've broken above that 50 ma once more. We definitely were in kind of a flag setup here. Let's see. It is tightening at the end there. If I drop this up, bring this back up to the actual bottom of the candle instead of the wicks, you can see that price action was tightening, and then we definitely broke over that resistance. So it would be nice to see it bounce off of resistance and treat it as new support and then continue. I do like that we've gotten a lot of price by volume here at the 174 to 190 zone. We'll see what happens. This looks good, to be honest. I like this a lot. This is something that I would enter if I had seen this on like Thursday. Actually, the Thursday candle did. Yeah, it did. Yeah, I would have definitely probably entered this on Thursday because we had a cross and a close over resistance over the 50 ma. That's bullish to me. And then if we look at the volume accumulation, even better. Oops, that's upside down. Like that a lot. Like the tested support multiple times. And I love that we're trading over pre-pandemic highs. This company obviously had. Oh, this is Whirlpool. That's hilarious. This company obviously had it turned down with the pandemic, but has, you know, since corrected and some. Let's take a look at the weekly here. Interesting. This is why it's important to look back. So we are definitely hitting this resistance here on this top wick, 200, 299. We've definitely struggled to cross that. I do like that we've got the accumulation and consolidation here and that great green wick. If we break over the 202.99 that we hit back in 2017, that could be pretty bullish. But honestly, look at this freaking run. That's insane. We had a run from $65 to about 205, so 150% ish, give or take. Not bad. Not sure if they've changed their model or what, but looks pretty good. What's KTOV, by the way? PBBT. Okay. ENZC OTC pink. Let's see. Let's take
KTOV is an old penny stock that we used to trade.
No, I remember that. He was saying that KTOV changed to PPBT. I didn't know that.
Ah, okay, I got you.
Okay, so yeah, so like I said earlier, penny stocks, small caps are all running right now. I don't know, Pardue, if there's some sort of catalyst coming up. I mean, you can't deny that this is upward trending. We don't know why, but it is important to note that we do have this resistance here at 19 cents. We do have this resistance here around 14 cents as well. And we've rejected that 14 cents a couple times. Yeah, there's not much you can say about this without knowing what the company is doing. With these pennies, you need to have like a catalyst for sure. J Maya. This is on the power earnings gapper list. When we first played this back in the summer, people were calling it the Amazon of Africa, and I'm pretty sure people are still calling it that. I think their numbers are pretty good fundamentally. I don't know them off the top of my head, but it did hit the power earnings gapper list, and I think this was it. I think we had the big gap up and then a sell off and then a continuation. We're looking at the weekly. I need to go to the daily. So this one is kind of tough to kind of fit into a pattern, in my opinion. You can throw this kind of support here and see that we've tested it twice, but that's not enough to give me conviction on it. I would say possibly broadening, but I think this one still needs to pan out a little bit. I'm not sure how I would play J-Maya. I would like to see it. I mean, definitely would come down to the support and see if we could test that again. If we get 3 bounces off support, that's pretty much confirmation for me that that's the new bottom. But good stock. I think they got a lot of upside. Lee by Barbed Wire. Let's see. Lee Auto. I think I just saw their car. It looks pretty cool, I'll be honest. So we've got this consolidation zone. We like that. We did break above it into this next shelf and then fell right back down to that previous shelf. We did close in it, so we could definitely come back down to the support to test. Above average buying volume on Tuesday. And we do respect the 65 MA on 1, 2, and then possibly 3 cases. So I think next week we should see if we bounce off this 65 MA. And if we do, then there's a possibility of still some more upside, at least to retake the previous highs. Okay, NVDA for bear. Yeah, this is like a Facebook to me, man. I really like Nvidia, and I love the fact that these big tech stocks have been consolidating for such a long time, because usually when you have a long-term consolidation, the move is just as long. So in this case, I would expect the move off of Nvidia when we finally get that break, not to be 20%, but it'll probably be 15. We won't be able to see the top of this, but I would assume like a 15% move over a couple weeks because of how long we've been consolidating. I like this. I don't like that it broke below our support here, but honestly, we've got wicks kind of under there. So if I make this secondary support, it's not too bad right now. If we can hold this secondary support line on Nvidia going into next week, I think this is a solid entry. Even if you wanted to long this stock, you're not going to get like exponential returns like you would with a growth company like the ones we went over on the PEG lists, or but I still think these are solid companies to throw your money at these levels. And then we've got BA. Looks like a bull flag. This is one of those where you're just kind of waiting on news regarding travel. I know when vaccines came, like the vaccine news came out in November, I think it was right after they announced President-elect Biden, right? They announced the Moderna vaccine and they announced the Pfizer vaccine, and their stock shot up because vaccines equals travel. And that's that. What I do like about BA at this level is that we're just now dancing on top of the 50 bar. Would love to see if we can dip a little bit more, but honestly, if we don't, that's even better. We've got a little volume shelf kind of forming right here. So if we can kind of hold above this bottom support at 204.62, I think this is a pretty good entry. I mean, with vaccines, there's a lot of upside with the airlines right now, but if you look at like weekly, these things have been consolidating forever. There's not a lot of there's better returning stocks than going into the airlines, in my opinion. Like, I don't hold any airline industry stock in my long portfolios. There's too much, especially with the pandemic, it doesn't make any sense right now, but there's not a lot of upside, in my opinion. V, I already know before typing this in that it looks like shit. So the financial sector had a little bit of a breakout a couple weeks ago. Let's see. Yeah, late December, just before Christmas. And then look at this monstrosity. We broke past previous resistance. It looked pretty bullish and then just sold off back down. We tried to test previous resistance as support and it did not hold. This makes me think some news came out, but I don't understand what news would put Visa and MasterCard down like this. I only say that because I know MasterCard kind of did something similar. Yeah, look at that. So we re-entered the trend here, which is no bueno. I don't like false breaks. And then also look at MasterCard dip below, like for 4 days. I try to stay away from the false breaks, like Fastly I've talked to. I know I've said this to Bear multiple times. This is like, as a breakout trader, I hate to see this. But I do like to see that we're kind of settling up here now. That'll be interesting to watch. GTT bottomed out ish, you know, this could definitely just keep going down. We're trading well under the 50 ma. This is a piece of shit banana. Thanks for sharing. Bye Han, sorry if I missed you. See you, thanks for coming.
Literally made me laugh, bro. Good job.
Let's see. SPCE, I like SPCE. Virgin Galactic. We love our boy Chamath. You know, the bad thing about this recent breakout, I did actually play this pennant earlier, and I did get a great breakout and a quick flip overnight on that. But then when the news came out that their launch wasn't going to happen, it tanked super hard. And so we did see this kind of descending broadening pattern, which we talked about earlier, right? Let's see if we can... Oh, fuck, I might have just deleted it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I just deleted it. But we had this one, but it wasn't a right angle, right? We had the angle kind of going down. We're having that here, we're broadening. Honestly, this should be more like this. And then we had that breakout back to previous highs. We have a good shelf kind of forming right here in between $30 and $34. And then obviously we've peaked up on IPO. This is just, you know, hype. You know, hype on space and stuff. That makes total sense. And that came out in November of 19. Let's take a look at the weekly here. Okay, no, that's when it came out on the market. Cool. Yeah, I think it'll be really cool to see what the ARC X comes up with. That's going to be the space ETF with our girl Kathy. I'm going to ban you for saying XSPA, Cornelius. That's your warning. ELYS. I kind of like this. Kind of looks like let's take a look here. This kind of looks like DGLY and all those, right? We're getting a little rounded bottom. That J-Lo booty bottom. Then we can edit this a little bit, make it look cleaner. Maybe we'll go up to that candle. Yeah, I like this. In terms of resistance here, this is kind of a toughie. We did close below on this shelf. Okay, this is what I would do here. So we know we have a good amount of volume by price between 534 595. We are actually sitting just on top of that 595 shelf. And I told you, you know, when we kind of sit on top of these shelves with not a lot of price by volume above, big moves are possible. We did get a big sell day on Friday though. That might have hindered it for a little bit. I don't know what they do, but this chart is enticing to me. I like the consolidation. I like the clean run. The gap up is kind of scary, but it could be institutional buying, and that's obviously always a good thing. So this is definitely worth watching, I think. Island. I don't know why you guys like this stock. Sorry. This is like Rocket Mortgage, except for like worse, because it never went up. This is like the most pumped stock on YouTube. They've got the hydrogen fuel trucks, I believe. EV is hot, yet they're not really, which is worrisome. I honestly don't know the fundamentals at all, so I, can't really comment on it. I can tell you that there's a lot of volume by price down here. If you can get in at the $15 range, and if you do believe this company has, upside potential, $15 is your bottom there, that $15.40. I know Twitchy's got some shares. I know he's averaged down and he's willing to wait, and that's totally okay that he's trading his plan. This is just a chart that I would not touch. Let's see, TVTY. We already did CGC, didn't we? TVTY. This is bullish. Okay, so we're still trading Activity health, okay. Still trading under pre-pandemic highs. I do like that once we crossed over that 50 mob, we've just been gunning it since. We've taken this volume shelf. You can see we kind of struggled to break into it for a little while, which is great. We like to see that. We like to see that a lot of people are accumulating and also selling their shares here so that other people can buy it in. So the next step would be to get to this next volume shelf, and I think we'll probably get a bigger move as soon as we break above this right here, right? Because I can do that, that's fine. Because not a lot of volume by price. So our target probably for this would be 23.14. Let's go ahead and take a look at the weekly for this. Yeah, so this is, you know, we did get a crossover the 50 MA. In terms of the weekly here, this, you know, this isn't a very promising chart in my opinion. Are there short-term opportunities? Sure, of course, there's short-term opportunities on every stock. But in terms of a long-term investment, this history would scare me personally. CGC. Actually, we'll look at theirs. I'm curious to see what it looks like. Okay, CGC, kind of same idea here. You can see that we've kind of got this bottom volume shelf. And then as soon as we broke up out of it, we're continuing to climb with the overall cannabis sector. Not sure of their fundamentals, but you know, there's a lot of weed companies to choose from right now. I do like the huge buy volume. I don't know if that's institutional. I guess that would have to be. In terms of an entry, you know, this has already kind of gone a lot. Tilray, the weed stock that I've been swinging through this madness, is also, oh, this is the weekly, let's look at the daily. It also had a pretty big sell day, so I'm kind of expecting a pullback tomorrow on that. But man, I mean, if we look at solar, oops, hold on, solar has just been absolutely destroying it. Actually, this tan looks like a good entry here on this volume shelf. We did get a massive sell day on Friday, broke below the current shelf. You can see because there was no volume by price here, easily moved down to the next shelf at $108. Still trading well below the 50.65, which this ETF tends to respect, which is really cool. And then also beautiful, beautiful, beautiful accumulation volume. Love to see that. ZERS. So we do have this kind of pennant forming. We did sell off, test support, and bounce off of it. You know, I'd wait for, I don't even know what this shelf isn't really anything, honestly. Let's look at the weekly. So they IPO'd in 2018, have been downward trending since about, you know, March when everything dipped. I mean, it is definitely trending upward. It's kind of slow. What's interesting to see is the lack of volume by price above this, so it definitely could start to move a bit quicker past 675, especially if they have a real product. I know a lot of you guys are in this, or some of you, not a lot of you. So obviously you probably have a reason for being in it. It's not downward trending, so I can't shit on you for that. It's definitely at least consolidating and showing a lot of support at these levels. That's all I can say for you. CCL. Carnival Corp, cruise lines. So this is kind of in the same boat with airlines. You know, until I think we see dates on when vaccine is going to come out, like for the general public, I think that news will be big for the travel sector for sure. We do kind of have this falling wedge forming. We did kind of test it before, but the Friday sell-off may bring us back down to this support. I do like how we kind of bounced off the 50 MA here. It hasn't always respected it, but at least it did here. These are things that, like, you know, if you buy some leaps or just shares for the long term and ignore them, there's a good upside just because, you know, pre-pandemic you've been at highs of $72. What I don't like is the fact that even before the pandemic hit, for the last 2 years, you know, Carnival's been down bigly and just trading well under the 50 MA, using it as a resistance. Okay. Oh, there's your news on Visa. I see. Thank you, Banana, for sharing that. EWZ from Paul. Okay. Brazil iShares. I know Paul loves this one. I mean, shit, dude, super bullish. I like the consolidation down here off after the March drop. We did get another consolidation before a breakout, and it looks like we're forming another consolidation here. So it looks like this one likes to consolidate for a couple of weeks before breaking out. I would like to see it hold that 3608 and that 50 ma. This is definitely uptrending though. If you can stomach the ride, because I mean even here it's pretty volatile. There's still a lot of upside here. Let's take a look at. Oh, that's the weekly. Let's look at the daily. That's still, yeah, still a lot of upside here. Confident in Brazil, are we? Confident in Brazil. Giving Ryan flashbacks from the great Penny Wars. AQMS on Bobby Nugs, yes sir. This is a monster. Don't know if, okay, so those volume days are monstrous. Let's look at the 65. Okay, I do like this. So you can see in multiple cases, we got the bullish pennant breakout back, I think, in December when Bobby was talking about it, like the G he is. We got a massive gap up to this volume shelf. We wedged down and then broke up through that shelf almost immediately. Consolidated this new shelf, gapped up, consolidated this new shelf, we've gapped up again, and it looks like we've been consolidating for a good couple weeks, or a couple days at least. So patternistically, it only makes sense that this would continue unless it's pump and dump. I don't know what this company does, I really don't. But I do like the consolidation before breaks. It's pretty consistent. This is the only time we got like a wedge down and then a break. It looks like Friday, it kind of held its ground too. If I go to 5 minutes, yeah, it's gonna look choppy because it's a penny, but yeah, we dipped super hard down on Friday with the overall market. It makes total sense, and then just came right back up to close just below where we closed the day before. But it looks like the pre-market or the after hours, it gapped right back up. Very interesting. Lots of buying here at the end of the day. Lots of buying. Some. Oil is an interesting avenue to pursue, considering that, you know, the what's it called, the Green New Deal or whatever, and all of the green energy sector has been running considerably. Oil is definitely going to take a hit. I know this is a dividend stock, so it might be worth a dividend stock, but in terms of growth or like percentage gains, you know, I don't know how it's gonna do, because we're gonna pretty much switch to clean energy where we can, right? Definitely a lot of upside still potential. I mean, if we drew some trend lines back from 2016, why is this not down here? You know, we could definitely retake that channel. I mean, our resistance would still be $76. It's still pretty good. I personally don't really, I won't go long on downward trending stocks. Another example of that is Reggie, or REGN, I think, Regeneron. We go on the daily. So Regeneron, same thing. It's had tested resistance over the last 6 months. Kathy decided to buy it back at $480 ish, and ever since she bought it, we've kind of been approaching that resistance again. It'll be very interesting to see if Kathy is the reason that this thing breaks out. Would love to see it. It'd be insane. But we do like long-term consolidation like this, because that means that when we do get that breakout finally, we'll get it pretty quick. Looks like we're consolidating in this new volume shelf. BB. Okay. Respecting the 50 mAh, it's pretty good. This is incredibly volatile. BlackBerry. So what was the news? Does anyone know what the news was recently that made us gap up this much? I remember that they were saying that they signed a contract with some big company.
Wall Street Bet Spot.
It'd be even better. Wall Street Bets can tell the future. So I mean, okay, let's talk about GameStop, because this is a perfect example of memery gone right. So when I talk about stocks having personalities, I really like using GameStop as an example, because although this company, in my eyes as a gamer, I know this company should not be like very profitable, I absolutely love its chart, how consistent you get these peaks and valleys. I actually put this on my watch list during this consolidation because I thought that it would once again go up. I did not expect a move like this. The short squeeze was definitely not something anyone could have expected. But this is really cool. I like to see stocks that have really distinct patterns and unique patterns, because they are playable over and over. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens to GameStop. If we kind of fall back down into that divot, it might just be a deeper fall and then a bigger gain again, or it could be a flop because there's a short squeeze. We'll see in some days to come. Catherine Wood. Is her name actually Catherine? Our Lord and Savior. MMEDF. This has been awesome, dude. I'm really glad to hear that. That makes me want to do it more, so thank you for that, Purdue. Let's take a look at MMEDF.
I think that might be an OTC, right?
Yes, I like this. I do like this a lot. So you see we're bullish from September. Obviously nothing was going on here. September is kind of early for the small caps to be picking up, so this makes me think it's not just because the small caps are running that this is up. This is like a legit chart. I also like that it's over $1, just personally. I'll trade, like I trade Zella all the time, which is under $1, but I do like that this is consolidating here. I picked the wrong line again. Whoops, let's go. So this looks like,
whenever it started running at first, I think Sahil actually said something about it.
this is the shrooms one, right?
Yes, I think so.
So the shrooms is another thing. I think it's going to be kind of running hand in hand with the cannabis industry. There's a lot of research going out. I actually had one of my buddies send me a link to a Harvard Business article about how psilocybin is being used to treat people with depression. So I think the mushroom industry, as like funny as it sounds to say the mushroom industry, I think it's definitely worth watching in the year to come. I really like the consolidation here. We've got consolidation from December to current day January. We're trading over the 50 and 65 mile. This is incredibly bullish. This is worth a watch for sure. If we can get a daily candle close above this 329, 330, I think it's worth picking up some shares since volume by price is so thin up here. I like this. This is a good stock. Why 65 minute? Honestly, could not tell you. It's unique to TrendSpider, and I like the charts better when you're trying to chop up the daily, because there's charts like, you know, tan, which are like so, actually that's not even a good idea. I guess what's the plug? There's charts like this which are kind of hard to analyze unless you kind of split it up into a wider time frame. This kind of puts it into perspective where the consolidation is a little bit more, even though it's a shorter time period. No reason in particular. I'll take a look at JD. JD's been struggling, man. I do like JD in the long term. You know, their gains have slowly been kind of tapering off. Like, we're not as steep as we were back in, you know, March. What's insane is if you look at this, the March dip did like nothing to JD. And when I see things that were not affected by like overall market, you know, sell-offs, like relative strength is always a bullish indication. I like that we have the bullish rectangle breakout here. I like that we had the falling wedge breakout here. We were forming this kind of pennant here, but you know, this green candle was an analyst upgrade to $100 and it ran like 10% of the day. We've since come back down to this resistance. We tried to hold it as support and unfortunately fell through. So it'll be interesting to see if we can bounce off 50 MA and then continue upward. But we'll see. I think JD's a good company though. I also think Baba's a good company, and I think you know, even though we've sold off so much, I think, you know, once this whole Jack Ma situation and the pandemic kind of weans away, I still think Alibaba is a huge company.
No one mentioned Shopify, did they?
No, we have not looked at Shopify. Let's take a look. I like Shopify as a company a lot. This is, you can tell, this is an old drawing of mine.
Me too. It's a big one. I definitely see them doing something possibly like Tesla did, to lower their share price to allow more people to enter into the company.
Stock split, yeah, I think it would be genius. So you can kind of see we're in this wide channel. I use the auto trend button here. Honestly, if I was going to do this, I probably would go like this instead. We are trading above the 50 MA. We have a volume shelf formed here between 1,000 or 1,100 and 1,000. So pretty good volume by price. We are starting to approach that resistance again. We got rejected, came back down, bounced off the volume shelf once more, and it looks like we're going to go retest that resistance again. We did get hit with the Friday sell-off here, but you know, all things considering, after we figure out where the overall market is heading in the next couple days, I think this has a good chance of retesting those highs. All right, let me catch up on messages real quick. There's a shroom and acid business. What the hell? Love it. BJ. Potato, there he goes requesting BJ. Okay, let's look at BJ's Wholesale Club. Oh, I was thinking the restaurant, to be honest. Okay, looks like we have a tested support zone here. And we could even do a secondary one just because we've got those bearish wicks. I'm going to change that to green and say that's basically like my stop zone. And then if I want to go ahead and make the wedge here, we definitely are coming down, descending. We see that on Friday we tried to break out, but just the overall market being down resulted in a false break. This is interesting to me for sure. I like that we've had a multi-month kind of channel. If we have a breakout over a multi-month channel, usually it's you know, a couple weeks of bullishness. So we'll see what happens. We did get this kind of break back here, right? Bull flag. Oh, didn't mean to do that. Yeah, I mean, I would wait for the breakout here for sure. I like the volume by price in this zone, and it also shows here as well because we have a lot of consolidation, buying and selling done here and here. So if we can get a daily close over resistance, I'd say pretty bullish. T, what is T? Ah, AT&T. Yeah, this just looks not very appetizing to me, I'll be honest. Let's do the auto trend, see what monstrosity it creates. Yeah, nothing. I mean, you do see the clear bottom there on the yellow. Jeez, there's so many lines there. What the hell? What the hell? Okay, guess we're not doing it. Tons of volume by price here. It's gonna take a long time for this to move up through it unless they get some crazy news. Something to note, we are getting a lot of accumulation volume here. We had a big candle here, big volume candle here and here, and also here. I don't know, since AT&T is kind of also in the cable business, that makes me hesitant because I know cable is kind of dying out. They're obviously in the phone telecommunications business too. I don't know what the returns are like for them in the future. I'd be worried about going long. I mean, there's obviously short-term trading opportunities, but I think there's better ones than AT&T. Let's see.
AT&T does have good dividends.
AT&T does have good dividends, and obviously when you're looking at dividend stocks, your criteria is incredibly different, so keep that in mind. Just because things aren't growing year over year in terms of share price doesn't mean it's a bad stock. I do have a list of dividend stocks that I was considering, and I could share that with you guys later after this maybe. So I'm new. Is this part of the talk, like putting up your own stocks to talk about? Yes, it is. You could throw some tickers in the chat, and then if I see it, I'll analyze it.
Coco, I don't think AMD is a sleeper. Everybody knows exactly what AMD can do. I wouldn't exactly call AMD a sleeper because I think we were talking about it when we first made a Discord about how big AMD could have gotten because of their unlocked capability of the GPU.
Right. No, AMD is. I like AMD a lot. Well, I'll look at the chart after. My chart is incredibly confusing, but I think it'll kind of explain why. Okay, so for PayPal, great, great bull run. I love that PayPal did not turn down too much. 123 to 92. I mean, 30%. Yeah, I guess it's pretty considerable, but we saw worse. And then since then, we've just been on this monstrous bull run. Back in September, when the overall market started to get choppy, you can see this is run pretty similarly with SPY. That September dip, and I'm assuming this is October. Yep, October 30th. SPY has the same two dips. And then we just continued to approach that resistance. We broke out, came back down to test previous resistance as support, and now we're continuing. I like PayPal. I think they're good. There's a lot of payment, like software as a service companies out there. PayPal is definitely one that's been around the longest. I'm not sure what their market share is. I mean, you've got companies like Cash App and Venmo and stuff, so there is the competition there. But PayPal's a great company. I like their stock, and I like how cleanly it trades. I like that Coco's first request was a blue chip. That makes me happy. I felt Has any stock attacked by Citron not made it back? No, that's usually what happens. They just like put out the short report and then buy the dip. I like Shopify. Cornelius, I'm just kind of reading your message from 243. I like Shopify because I personally have made websites with Shopify, and I know that there's big companies that use Shopify, like what's like the Fashion Nova is a huge partner with Shopify, and that's a huge company for women's fashion. They've just got really big names under their umbrella. And I think once again, the fact that it's consumer based, like it's not business to business, it's business to consumer, is huge nowadays.
Just in case anyone's not watching, Browns are coming back.
Oh, give me the score real quick.
It is 22 to I think 17.
Okay.
And Mahomes is out due to concussion.
Oh damn. All right, so let's talk about AMD here a little bit. Mine is going to be a little bit confusing. I've got all these like support and resistance lines, but what I want you to like take away here is that AMD too has a pattern that it trades in. And that is we get the bullish rectangle channel, the multi-month consolidation, and then a big breakout. The multi-month consolidation, the breakout here was false though, in my opinion, and I don't like that. I also don't like that we dropped below this volume shelf. You could see because there was not a lot of volume at these prices, we dropped all the way down to this start of the next volume shelf. I know Friday was a sell day. We did reach all-time highs earlier in the week, so honestly this pullback is not a big deal. If you recently got it in AMD and you're worried because it's dropped, I wouldn't worry too much. It just reached all-time highs. It's a very bullish indicator no matter what. And I think AMD has a very, very strong future. I hold AMD in my investment account. I mean, it doesn't trade very cleanly. We know the intraday is so very volatile. We've seen these big gap ups followed by huge gap downs. But I do like the company, and obviously Mama Sue.
The thing about AMD is, like I said earlier, it trades the opposite of Intel, so kind of like how VIX trades opposite of the SPY.
Yep.
So if Intel goes up, AMD is coming down.
Exactly, and Intel put out that good news. So let's take a look at Intel real quick. I don't think I've drawn on this. Oof, Intel looks rough. But yeah, Intel had great news recently, and that's exactly why AMD went down. It was actually funny to see the pre-market action of when Intel put out their news. It was like the exact opposite of what AMD did. It looks like we're going to find consolidation here for Intel. We did close just on top of this bottom shelf. Hopefully we can hold that level. Definitely trading under pre-pandemic highs. I do not like how much Intel dropped. Well, I guess it's still 30%. Most stocks did that. It just looks very scary. In terms of, I don't know, does Intel give dividends? I don't think so. I think there's better. I mean, I'm AMD biased, so All right, let me see. AMC is the new AMD potato. AMC. Yeah, man, I think movie theaters are pretty screwed here. I do like that we have a clear bottom. We did bounce very, very cleanly off that 194 shelf 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. There's upside, short-term upside potential, sure. I think movie theaters are never going to be as popular as they used to be. I don't know. Are people still going to movie theaters around you guys? I'm in California, everything is locked down, so.
Nah, not that I know of. I was definitely joking when I said AMC is the new AMD.
No, I know.
Look into this monstrosity, but yeah, I don't see nobody at movie theaters right now.
And then they've already, they've already started, you know, new releases, putting it on streaming services and stuff. And I think that's probably going to be the new norm. Like, listen, I love to go to the movies as much as the next guy. I just think it's, I mean, right now with COVID, obviously, it's taken a huge beating. But I also think people like to just stay home, be able to eat their own food, not pay $20 for a thing of popcorn.
I really like AMD here, to be honest. Like, as an instant buy on Monday, I really like AMD.
I will always advocate for an AMD buy. Yeah, I think that's pretty, excuse me, oversold.
Because the last time it was around here was over a month ago.
Right.
Like, the last time it was here was December 10th.
If I extend this resistance, Jordan, it's right to where the stock closed.
Yeah, it's right there.
So the fact, if we can hold that going into, and that's after 3 days of sell-off, right? So I don't expect the 4th day. I mean, it happens, but like 4 day. This is like a 7-day sell-off. But
close out of your window there too.
Exactly. I like that. I like that it's still primed on top of this shelf. But again, I'm biased.
But
BTCTA.
They're not gonna die.
No, of course not.
AMD will be fine.
I agree. We could look at Bitcoin. I don't really. So Bitcoin. Huge volume by price shelf between 32,000 and 38,000. We did get that dip below back to 30,000 a couple times, but it looks like we're pretty much respecting that shelf pretty damn well. Let's go ahead and go to the weekly on this because that's going to be way more. It doesn't give me, it only gives me September. That sucks. I would love to be able to compare this to the previous 2017 peak. Yeah, you know, crypto is something that I'm not versed on. I don't trade crypto. I hold a little bit of Bitcoin and some Ethereum, but it would be really cool to see it not tank 80% after taking all these gains. You know, whether or not you like crypto, you know, it's something that I don't necessarily understand to the most of its potential, but it would be really cool to see it just not be a pump and dump. CES. What is CES? Oh, that's not CES. Oh, I know Twitchy did ask me for FIII, so we could take a look at that. This is another SPAC. So we know SPACs kind of have that $10 bottom, and you can see that with this shelf here, which is actually 1120, but you know, that's just kind of how it goes. I do like that we are creating another shelf here. We did close a little bit below the main part of it, but I'm not too worried. If I was going to draw it, I'd probably draw it between here, and I'll give it the one up here. So with a daily candle close above 1410, volume by price begins to thin out, and we could see a big move, especially with merger news or some sort of date. Yeah, this looks pretty good. SPACs are pretty much a safe bet if you can get as close to $10 as possible from what I've seen, but I'm not the resident SPAC expert. That would be Twitchy Kibos. Let's see, Long Ryan. Okay. Posh? Is that Poshmark? Wow, I didn't even know they were public. Oh, they just went public. Ah, that's a pretty inviting candle, wouldn't you say? Looks like they IPO'd around $100, and they are down 20%. I have never jumped in on IPOs as of yet. In my short history, I would like to see this thing form a base and then break upwards. I would also like to see the fundamentals, because obviously there is opportunity in joining IPOs, but right now it's just kind of like a FOMO. Definitely worth watching. SEDG. Let's go daily on this guy. Okay, this is interesting. Isn't this... I feel like I know this company. Banana, what is SEDG? Solar? Yeah, it is. It says Solar Edge. I'm done. Okay, I do like this because, look, we've had a huge sell-off before and it sold off below the 50 MA, but we did get a great correction back up to all-time highs. So this may be an opportunity. I still think solar is going to be incredibly bullish going into 2021. I know right now it's incredibly expensive to switch to solar, but I think, especially in California, I know they're going to like give tax incentives, and obviously like they have the goal of going completely green in 2030. So I think solar is not going away. And if we relate it to the TAN, the ETF on solar, it's pretty much hand in hand. So if you can stomach the volatility on this, I think a good entry is coming up pretty soon here.
I wouldn't be surprised if every home, or the government will push in every home in America that's being brand newly built, get solar panels on as it's built, like as a requirement.
I think so.
Europe already basically has that. All of the homes in Europe are starting to put it on them that have been there for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Like, that's just the norm.
Yeah. And I think it should be. I mean, in the long term, it's a great investment. You do save money. The problem is the upfront cost, right? It costs, I think, about 70 grand here in California to get the Tesla solar tile roof. And I know that's not the one you need to get or whatever, but it's, even with a Solar Edge or what's another solar company that I know? There's a bunch here in San Francisco. But either way, I still think long term they'll figure out a way to make it more readily available because, green energy and all that.
It also helps the monopoly on energy companies. Even though they're still going to have a monopoly on it, they can tap into your energy and actually pay for the energy you don't use.
That's right. That's right. SPWR will be huge one day if they do that. SunPower, same thing, man. Great solar company. We've tested this, or we've held that 50-65 MA pretty well. We did dip a little bit below it before, but we're pretty much staying pretty much above that. I like it a lot. The accumulation volume, I mean, it was definitely higher here. We saw a lot of accumulation, bull flag here, and then a continuation. I do like that it still looks like volume is increasing. Like I said, I think green energy solar is going to be huge this year. CPSH. Okay, yeah, this is a monstrosity. CBS Technologies, not sure exactly what they do. This is a low float, obviously small cap. You can see that all of the volume by price was sitting in between $1.40 and $2.84. So when we broke above this 325 zone, it's just sky high. If we go ahead and look at the weekly chart, we'll go on the monthly. This is actually pretty interesting that it's traded in a range since 2008. I don't know what they do, but this move had to be because of some sort of news. I can't really give TA on like an elevator. Pola. It's the monthly. We'll go daily. Okay, POLA, another small cap. I like this for a small cap because once again we've got that pattern going on here. We got the gap up, sell off, consolidation, dip, breakout, consolidation, sell off, consolidation, up, wedge, breakout, wedge, breakout. I don't know what they do. Polar power, energy. I'm assuming clean energy. This above average volume is pretty immense. from the 15th, and it showed relative strength on a day where the market was incredibly bearish. So definitely worth noting. I mean, this thing is already up considerably, and we're trading pretty thin in the volume by price. So it's not something that I would consider getting in right now. Maybe a pullback to that 50 MA that we've tested multiple times here. 50 MA, 50 MA, 50 MA. Yep. But interesting one. XPEV. EV. So I thought this was a falling wedge of sorts. Didn't really give me the breakout that I wanted. I guess you could say it did break out a little bit, but then we just consolidated. And we dropped below the volume shelf briefly, only for 2 days, so that's pretty good. So it didn't even test the 65 MA, and now we're kind of hugging that 50 MA. You can see we have a pretty big volume shelf right around here. Let's go ahead and put that and highlight it. Oops. Go ahead and delete this. False break over the shelf, no big deal. I would like to see this thing close the daily candle on top so that we can get that springboard off the volume shelf. Volume price thins out pretty quickly. This thing could definitely retake its highs. EVs are hot. I don't know what their revenue and their sales are, but I know this is one of the big EVs with NIO and Tesla, and I guess Li Auto is kind of getting up there too. Did we look at Solo earlier? I think I wanted to show you guys Solo. So this is an example of another small cap that we all pretty much know. EV sector, it's got like the EV trikes. Although this chart looks pretty bullish, and I was able to trade this breakout, I do want to stress that I just feel like this is because small caps are running. I don't think because they've changed their business model. I don't think they're worth this price. I just think right now small caps are running and people are watching them. If we look at the weekly here, incredibly just selling off. If we look at the monthly, you know, same deal. It would interest me to see this thing break upwards of $14. I just don't think it's gonna happen. Capone, thank you for posting a picture of Solo's vehicle in the chat. That helps everybody. SAN. Yeah, the Solo vehicles are ugly, I agree. Banco Santander? Kind of confusing. So this trade's really thin. You can see extremely gappy, not something that I would trade pretty much. But you did have this wedge here and then the clean breakout because of it on increased volume. You can see this massive volume day. Also, this accumulation shouldn't go unnoticed. That means people are incredibly bullish about the stock. Whenever I see like double the average volume, I think MMs and institutions. It's not necessarily the truth, but people notice those big volume candles. KO, Coca-Cola. I'm actually holding Coca-Cola, and unfortunately it dipped below my trend line. Which is okay, honestly. So this is the long-term upward channel that's been having. Obviously, we dipped a little bit in the pandemic. We recovered and have been consolidating. You know, we do have this bottom here that has not been tested a lot. I added the secondary support trend, but we can see that we actually dipped below it on Friday. I think, you know, I think the possibility of it coming back into the trend it's definitely there. But it just as possibly could go back down to this support. I definitely have I have far out calls for Coke, so I'm not really worried too much. I do like that it's trading under pre-pandemic highs. If we look at the weekly, yeah, March, it really hurt. Back in March, we had like a 50% drop, and we're still, you know, a considerable 15% or whatever under previous highs, 30%. I think this will have its day. Not too worried. LLIT. I actually have been watching this one a lot on the kind of on the down low. I'm very familiar with Lian Luo because I'm a big PC guy. I've built a lot of PCs and I know their cases. I do like that they are I do like that they are merging with Newegg. Newegg, if you guys are familiar with building PCs, is like the go-to go to PC online store, PC parts. If you don't have a micro center or whatever near you, like Newegg is the way to go. So that merger is interesting to me. I don't know when that's exactly happening. But we've definitely bottomed out here and we've started this little bit of an uptrend. I would like to see it break above a daily close above that volume shelf you can see. So the day we get 685, we might get some pretty big movement, right? Because with the volume by price thins out, and then as soon as we hit the 840s, that's the potential is there. So this is actually a small cap that I am really watching because I do like Newegg, and their numbers fundamentally are pretty impressive. Also, PC parts are expensive as hell. Their margins are insane. All right, I'm gonna look at a couple more, and then since we hit 2 hours, I'm definitely gonna wrap it up here, just because I am recording this, so that I don't want it to be like a huge file. So let's look at CPB that Potato's looking at. Look, I've already drawn on this one. I think this was Campbell's soup. Okay, so this is a lot like Facebook. We did break below our long-term trend because of bearish conditions. Ironically, though, on Friday we got just some more accumulation. So this is something to note, right? On a down day, Campbell's soup ironically showed relative strength. So would love to see this re-enter the channel. We do have a lot of volume by price sitting at this $46 to $49 zone. So I definitely wouldn't buy down here because it could keep falling, right? It fell out of trend. I would definitely probably buy support, the buy-in, or the break back into pattern. You can get a good little swing out of that 46 to 53. We are trading below pre-pandemic highs. Yeah. Let's look at the weekly on this guy. Not so hot, to be honest. Definitely not a long-term hold, but definitely has short-term potential, especially with the bullishness on Friday. Oh, it's not Lian Luo. I thought it was. I'll Google it later. That's hilarious. What's Lian Li then? Or Lian Liao? All right, I'll take 3 more tickers. PHUB. PHUB is not a stock. I'm assuming you mean Foon.
I think this is one we talked
Oh,
about.
I'm dumb as hell. Potato. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jordan.
We've definitely traded and talked about this one.
Oh yeah, no, we've traded this. This is like a Bitcoin sympathy play. This is a perfect example of small caps being hot right now. This daily chart is pretty disgusting. We do have a determined bottom here, around 60 cents. So, if it ever does come back to 60 cents, you could scoop up some shares, pull a J Mori, and flip it for like 40%. Long-term potential, no. Look at that weekly. January of 19 hit. What? That's not true. That means reverse split. A couple reverse splits. Yeah, this is when you zoom out to the weekly and it looks like this, it should be a huge red flag. Okay. Tiva, got it. Okay. This is kind of a toughie. I know from just actually watching Shark Tank, the TV show, that owning or being in the drink industry is incredibly competitive. I do like that this is definitely bottomed out. I like how we're approaching the top of this volume shelf and that there's a gap right here. A bigger gap is actually right here. Let's go ahead and put in the shelf that we're trading in. I like this as a short-term play, obviously. Not a long-term, but if we can get a daily candle close on top of this shelf right here at 1268, we'll definitely get a move up to the 16s. We've already kind of broke above the 50 mile, which is a pretty good sign. I do like the above average accumulation here last couple days, and the fact that we had a bullish day on Friday. So this isn't too bad, honestly. Like you could probably get a little move on this. DGLY 2.9. What do you mean 2.9? We already looked at DGLY. 305. I have this on the 65-minute. Chart it out. Oh, I don't? Wait, what? Oh, okay, daily. I guess I wasn't on the daily. Yeah, I like this chart, man. I like it because we've got a clear support, pretty large volume shelf, and we're testing the resistance on it. We also had a bullish day on when the market was not, so I think this could be just like a short-term mover. Chances of you getting 2.9 probably pretty high, man. I mean, look at the candle width. I mean, that's the thing about penny stocks, they're volatile. So on this day, it saw lows of 262, and that was earlier last week, and then highs of 324. What's going to be big is the daily close over this resistance, right? Daily close over this shelf at 322 will be pretty bullish. Okay, and with that, I think I'm gonna wrap it up here. I do want to thank all of you for coming and hanging out with me. I know a lot of you are the YBE crew, so thanks for sponsoring this event. It's been a blast so far. We're halfway through the first month of 2021. We have so much more time to spend to make money and grow together as a community. I'm hoping that we can kind of make this a regular thing. Do me a favor, if you did enjoy this, please let me know, because how am I supposed to know otherwise? So I'm definitely going to be posting this in the videos and pinning it. I don't know about YouTube yet. We'll see what happens. I don't know if I kind of want to go that route, but you know, I think this is beneficial for everyone. And listen, I know my method is different than everyone's, and that's the beautiful thing about the stock market. There's no one way to do anything. We have tons of different strategies. You know, I scalp options pretty much on the daily too. And I'm sure that, you know, I would love to have Capone, since he's kind of the master of sniping options. At some point, if he'd be willing to, it'd be really cool to see his process too. And then also, you know, Sahil has he's very good at momentum trading, flip as well. We've got a lot of talent here, and it's really cool that we all have our own kind of niche. And I think it's really important to share it with each other, because you got to constantly adapt with, you know, the overall market. That's why, you know, I've attempted shorting, I've traded options, I've done it all. You got to learn it all. It's a constant learning process. It's super fun, and I'm super appreciative to have a great community to do it with me. So thank you guys. I'm gonna wrap it up, the recording and the stream. If you have any questions, you can obviously DM me, but thanks for showing up.
Ryan, did you go over YBE? You know, the fucking stock in your name?
Yeah, no, that's not a stock. That's just Huge Brain Enterprises.
That's what I thought. Because everyone's asking, what is YBE?